Okay, so the world of AI, I mean, it's just moving at lightning speed. Right?
Absolutely. Blink and you miss something major.
Exactly. And sometimes the really big signals, there aren't these huge announcements. They're like quiet updates on developer platforms.
Mm-hmm. Things you might easily overlook.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. We're digging into a CNN business article that reported on exactly that kind of thing. It's about a Chinese AI company, DeepSeek.
Yeah, and what's so interesting here, what the article really highlights, is how these seemingly small steps, these little updates, can actually point to pretty significant shifts in the global AI picture.
Totally. So we're using the CNN business piece as our guide today. Our mission really is to unpack what this specific kind of quiet update from DeepSeek actually means.
And why DeepSeek is a company you should probably be watching.
Right. Why them? And what does this tell us, big picture, about the AI race globally? Maybe even challenge some of our assumptions about who's leading and, importantly, how they're leading.
Okay, sounds good. Let's jump in. So, the source, CNN Business, starts by introducing DeepSeek. They're a Chinese AI startup.
Okay.
And the specific news is this update they released for their R1 reasoning model, the new version. It's called R1-0528.
R1-0528. Got it. And like you said, this wasn't some big press conference. The article says it just appeared on Hugging Face, the developer platform.
Yeah, early Thursday, May 29th. And the source is pretty clear. No official public announcement from DeepSeek, no big description of what's new. Not yet, anyway.
So how do we even know what it is?
Well, the article mentions that a DeepSeek representative apparently called it just a minor trial upgrade.
Where?
In a WeChat group, one they use for user testing, so very low-key.
Minor trial upgrade? That sounds, well, minor. But the reason this is actually worth talking about, even if they call it minor, goes back to their history, right? Specifically, the original R1 launch.
Exactly. You got to have that context, which the article provides. Their first R1 model launched back in January. That was a big deal.
How so?
Well, the source says it, quote, upended beliefs that U.S. export controls were really succeeding in holding back China's AI progress.
Okay, that is significant. Upended beliefs. And what about the model itself?
According to the CNN article, DeepSeek's original R1 was reportedly on a par with or better than industry-leading models in the United States.
Wow.
But here's the kicker, the really crucial part. The article stresses how they did it.
Right.
They achieved this at a fraction of the cost. And maybe even more importantly, it challenged the view that scaling AI requires vast computing power and investment.
Ah, okay. So comparable performance, much cheaper, and maybe didn't need like a whole power plant to run it.
Basically, yeah, that's the implication. And the article flags this as a major aha moment for the whole industry.
You can see why that kind of efficiency changes the game. Did it have real-world impact?
Oh, definitely. The article explicitly notes the R1 launch back in January actually sent tech shares outside China plummeting.
Just like that, from one model launch.
Seems so. It shows how sensitive the market is to challenges to that cost and scaling assumption.
Okay, so that sets the stage. DeepSeek makes this big splash with R1 by being efficient. Now they quietly dropped this R1-0528 update. Since DeepSeek isn't saying much, how does CNN Business evaluate it? You mentioned benchmarks.
Right. With no official details, the article relies only on data from one specific benchmark leaderboard, Live Code Bench.
Live Code Bench. And who's behind that?
The source mentions it's run by researchers from UC Berkeley, MIT, and Cornell, so reputable academic sources.
Okay, and for its specific task, which I think was code generation.
Yeah.
How did this minor trial upgrade, R1-0528, do on that benchmark?
Well, according to the Live Code Bench data cited in the article, for code generation, it ranked just slightly behind OpenAI's O4 Mini and O3 reasoning models.
Okay, wait, so right behind OpenAI's latest, maybe more efficient models? That doesn't sound very minor.
Perhaps not in performance terms, no. Especially for a trial upgrade.
How did it compare to other models mentioned in the article?
On that same benchmark, the Live Code Bench for code generation, the source says R1-0528 ranked ahead of xAI's Grok 3 Mini.
Elon Musk's company. Okay.
And also ahead of Alibaba's Qun 3.
So even this quiet update is immediately showing up as competitive against major players, OpenAI, xAI, Alibaba, at least on this one specific benchmark task.
That's what the data cited suggests, yes.
What does that tell you then? about how fast they're iterating or the pressure the first R1 put on the market?
Well, it really suggests they're capable of continuous, rapid improvement, keeping pace even with these incremental updates, and it definitely speaks to the competitive environment that R1 helped create.
Yeah, let's talk about that competition. The article really paints a picture of R1 shaking things up.
It absolutely does. Since R1 launched, the reaction has been intense. The CNN piece points out that Chinese tech giants like Alibaba and Tencent, they've released models claiming to surpass DeepSeek's. So, direct competition within China.
And what about outside China, the US players?
They reacted too. The article mentions Google's Gemini introducing discounted tiers of access.
Ah, playing the price card.
Seems like it. And OpenAI specifically cut prices and released an O3 mini model that relies on less computing power.
Interesting. So OpenAI releases a less compute-hungry model after DeepSeek showed high performance with potentially fewer resources.
You see the connection, right? It's like the article is showing this cause and effect. DeepSeek demonstrates efficiency, and suddenly competitors are focused on price cuts and lower compute options.
It's a perfect example of that dynamic. Innovation, especially around cost or efficiency, forces everyone else to react. Did the article mention anything else DeepSeek is up to?
Just briefly, it notes they also released an upgrade to their V3 large language model back in March.
Okay, and what about the R2, the successor to the big breakthrough R1? Any news on that?
The source says the company is still widely expected to release R2. It mentions a Reuters report from March.
Yeah.
That said R2 was initially planned for a May release. But the CNN article we're looking at, it doesn't confirm if R2 is out yet. It just notes that earlier report about the May plan.
Okay, so sticking strictly to what this CNN piece tells us, R2 is anticipated, maybe it was planned for May, but no confirmation here. Got it.
Right. Got to stick to the source material.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. Based only on what this CNN article has laid out for us, what are the key things you should be taking away from this DeepSeek update story?
I think the main thing is that DeepSeek is clearly demonstrating it's still a serious global competitor in AI.
Even with just minor trial upgrades.
Exactly. And critically, like the original R1 highlighted and like the competitive reactions seem to confirm, they appear to be pushing the boundaries on cost effectiveness, achieving high performance potentially without needing those absolutely massive compute resources that we often assume are essential.
So they're making people question that fundamental equation. Performance equals huge investment.
That seems to be the core tension they're exploiting, yeah. And that whole dynamic, it's actively reshaping the global AI race.
How so?
Well, like the article showed with Alibaba, Tencent, Google, OpenAI, DeepSeek's success, particularly on the efficiency front, seems to be driving competitors to adapt, lowering prices, developing their own more efficient models. It spurs that kind of innovation across the board.
Right. It also just highlights the incredible speed of everything. I mean, constant updates, quick reactions.
Absolutely. The pace is just relentless. Even these quiet updates on places like Hugging Face can signal important shifts.
And maybe the biggest point, it underlines that really significant cutting-edge AI work is happening in lots of places, not just the handful of US companies we always talk about.
For sure, the landscape is much more diverse and dynamic than maybe it seems sometimes. DeepSeek is a prime example discussed in this article.
Okay, so to wrap up the core finding from the CNN piece, DeepSeek's latest update, R1-0528, even if called minor, reinforces their position as a strong global contender. It shows competitive benchmark results and continues to challenge those assumptions about the cost and compute power needed for advanced AI.
Which leads to a final thought, something to chew on, really, based on what the article implies.
Yeah.
If companies like DeepSeek are proving, or at least strongly suggesting, that highly competitive AI can be developed with maybe fewer resources than we thought, what does that mean for the future? Does it make advanced AI development potentially more accessible, more democratized globally?
That's a really interesting question to leave things on. More accessible AI development, what would that world look like? Definitely something to think about.